Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of our podcast, the Immigrant Success in Canada Programs podcast. My name is Emanuel Petrescu,
Hi, my name is Charlie Beck.
and today we're going to talk about our second module from our program. You have already watched the first two episodes, the one when we got to introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about our journey in Canada, how we ended up here, and just a little bit about our program. And the last episode, we went into details about the first module of our program, self-assessment. But before we dive right into this episode, Charlie, can you remind our guests what are the five modules of our program?
We have five modules. Yeah, the first one is self-assessment, and then education, and then work and life balance, and then natural environment of Canada, and the last module is action plan for the next 20 years.
Success action plan. As discussed early on, we said that today we're going to cover the second module, which is education. Education for yourself, education for your children, and lifelong education, because it's a continuous journey. So let's let me start right off and ask you the first question, Charlie, I had in mind. What are the key components of module 2 of our immigrant success program, education?
Yes, absolutely. In this module, we are talking about education. So education is really important, and we set up in three components. So first, education for yourself, and then education for your children. If you have children, how important education for your children are, and lastly, lifelong learning and education. How important and how we can coach you develop lifelong learning.
Not just in Canada, but why do you think education is important overall in Canada?
Uh, First, education is important because if you want a meaningful and a purposeful career, so it is a stepping stone to build a good career in Canada. So that's why it's really important.
For yourself.
Exactly. So let me tell you a little bit more clear how we will coach you about education for yourself. This is based on our own experiences. Emmanuel and me, we are co-founders and also coaches, and we have gone through this process through our immigration journey, and we'll talk about our own experience and our own stories. So how our education actually helped us to develop our own career in Canada. And that's why we will give you case studies. So first my own case study and then Emmanuel's case study. My case study is about my original background in finance and how I transitioned in Canada through my education, how I obtained my master's degree and how it helped me to get a job in the government. And then how I also continued to learn and become an accountant in Canada. And what about you, Emmanuel? You can also talk about your very briefly about how your education transitioned into your career and then how it went so far.
Yeah, of course. So there's the mandatory education. So in your case, you're a certified professional accountant as well. So you actually need to be trained. It's not like you choose to do so. You need to be educated constantly. But also there's the different types of education, and you will see that in Canada there are different forms of even higher education, right? You don't need necessarily to finish your bachelor again, or you can make give some equivalency tests, but there's also certificate and diploma programs that can actually help you get into the job market sooner rather than later, and obviously less costly. So there's way too many options, and there's the continual education. But let me ask you something, Charlie, because when you came here, I remember from the first episode, when you came to Canada with your family, you already had one child, right? So
Yes,
I'm assuming that when you thought about education, obviously you thought about educating yourself in Canada, but also you thought about your children, right, and their education when you decided to come in Canada. Is
yes,
that correct?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to we move into next. uh, what it means education for children. So based on my research and my own experience, one of the key reasons a lot of immigrants come to Canada is to provide the better education for their children. So a lot of people come to Canada from Korea, India, China, from European countries, but they always wanted to provide the better education for their children. And Canada has one of the best public education systems. So in this component, we'll talk about actually how I educated my two children. I have one boy and one girl. So for the last 20 years, how I educated my two children in Canada. So what does a good education mean for children? That means we like to develop a good citizen through our education. So very balanced approach, good obtaining required knowledge and skills for their career, but at the same time, to become a good citizen, they need good balance in learning about ethics and the manners and characters, and also enjoying their hobbies, what they like to do. So how my children enjoyed and developed their hobbies. For my son, he loved playing badminton. So how he actively engaged in badminton in high school. And my daughter loved figure skating. So she actually figure skated for 10 years during her school. So how she did that. And then also both my children learned how to play piano. So that was another good thing. So another thing is both of them went to French immersion school to learn French language because French is one of the two official languages in Canada. So in this section, we'll talk about what kind of education opportunities children can have and how they make a good balance between study and what they love to do. So this is a whole package of education for children.
I know, and many people can confirm that Canada has one of the best public education system in the entire world as well. Uh, a couple of comments on that.
Yeah, so because basically you don't have to pay anything through public system and up to high school. So in Canada, elementary and secondary system, so up to grade 12, if you go to public schools, you don't have to pay any tuition and any fees. And my children went through public system. And when you go to colleges and universities, from that time you have to pay. And but still, there are some support from governments to public universities in Canada and colleges too. So uh, I believe that Canada has one of the best education systems. our teachers are excellent, and also overall curriculum is well balanced to teach children to develop a good character and also knowledge for their future career.
And one of the wealthiest men on the planet, Elon Musk, actually did attended the Queen's University in Kingston, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, yeah, I
So
think so. Yeah. Mm.
yeah. So a lot of them, but overall, education is good in Canada. I wouldn't move on to the next question until I would also say that there's the so-called what I call informal education groups, such as, for example, Toastmasters, that you could actually join and can basically train you and be part of a group that's also an educational institution and that can help you adapt even sooner for the requirements of what the Canadian market requires, can help you build the confidence that you need to have a conversation, to actually go to an interview, and so forth. So it's the formal education, the I won't call it completely informal, but not official education. And there's also the continuous education. Many people might think, oh my God, I went to school for so many years. What, do I need to go to school for my entire life until I'm 8 years old? What does this continuous education means? And also, how do you see it? Because I believe that at the end of the day, everybody perceives this differently, right? So I'm curious, Charlie, how do you see and what do you understand when you say continuous education yourself, and also in the context of the Immigrant Success Canada coaching program?
Absolutely. Uh, Lifelong learning is more important for immigrants because as a as an immigrant, we have to overcome two challenges. So actually, first one is English is the second language, so you have to learn and master how to speak English fluently. And the second one is understanding and learning about the Canadian culture. So that part is actually might be a bit more difficult or challenging if you really want to be successful and happy in Canada. So based on our experience, it's extremely important to have a mindset. You always learn and develop yourself for your career and then to become a happy and successful immigrant. So here, what I mean is that through my journey in Canada, I learned that there are very delicate cultural things you have to understand. So, what does Canadian culture mean? How they communicate, how Canadians communicate, and what it means. So, each immigrant comes from different country, right? Emmanuel comes from Romania. I'm from Korea. So we have our own original home countries, culture, and how we communicate, and then how we learn. And but here that means we need to understand the Canadian communication, Canadian learning, Canadian culture. So here, so we are not just talking about theory, practically how you can do that. So Emmanuel and I will like to provide you practical and realistic approach. So for example, one of the examples is Toastmasters. So both Emmanuel and I had been and have been a member of Toastmasters. So it's a good tool you can use continuously improving your public speaking. And another thing is private tutoring or having private English tutors or English communication coaches. So I have been using over the last 20 years several English communication coaches. So I learned a lot from them about how I use my English languages, and then also how I frame my thought in English and how I communicate. So in this section, we'll provide what kind of tools and the resources you can use. And also, if you want to pursue some specific area, so for example, Emmanuel wants to be an expert on digital marketing and SEO, search engine optimization expert. So he put his efforts. So he knows what kind of education or tools you can use. So for me, I'm an accountant. So I obtained my accounting designation in Canada when I was 45 years old. So how I obtained my accounting designation. So if you are interested in accounting or finance field, so specific advice will provide you. So this is about what it means and then what kind of practical course will provide on lifelong learning.
I wouldn't move on without mentioning that by actually being a role in this program, we would be able to help you find a specific coach. We can help you find an advisor that you can work with on a specific set of skills that you would like to develop. So let's say somebody wants to work on their English language communication and want to get more. Through our program, we will be able to partner you up with somebody who's a has English as a first language and who have taught English as well and has a proven way of helping students get where they want faster. So our coaching program is not just specifically and limits to the program, but also gives you access to a let's say local market of Canadians who can altogether help you adapt better and be successful and happy in Canada,
Yeah, right.
which is at the end of the day the aim of not just our program but of our lives, right?
Mm.
Uh, Charlie, do you have anything else to add overall in terms of education in Canada and education inside our coaching program?
Yeah, I think we put a lot of emphasis on education because we believe that that's the strong foundation. So you have to have a strong mindset. I will learn and study all the way through next 20 years in Canada to be a happy and successful immigrant. So that's my uh, final word for education.
I forgot to mention this when we were talking about Canadian culture and communication in Canadian culture. Nobody outside of Canada, for example, knows what it means when I say double double, for example, right? But federally, I don't know exactly, but I believe if I go from Ontario to Quebec to New Brunswick to the eastern provinces, and I believe even to the west coast, double double means something. So for those of you who doesn't know, we have a local coffee shop which is the Canadian Starbucks, the equivalent of Starbucks. It's called Tim Hortons, and they serve a coffee that's double double, double cream, double milk, but we call it double double, and many people don't actually know. And I was just discussing the other day with somebody. I wouldn't also move forward without mentioning the Canadian culture, which is very diversified uh, and can differ significantly. And I'm just talking right now. I'm referring to Ontario, for example, Toronto, and Quebec, Montreal, which can essentially be considered two different cultures that are in the same country on the end of the day. And I wanted to ask you, many people think, oh, Canadian is a bilingual country. I need to know French to come here. Is that true?
No, actually, that is not true. Yeah, if you want to learn both French and English, that's fine. You can do that. There are a lot of opportunity. As I told you, my children also learn the French through their elementary and the high school. So that's great. But you Even though you don't speak French, you can get a good job and then just by speaking English, especially in Ontario and other provinces. But if you want to have a job in Quebec, or if you want a good job and moving up in the federal government of Canada, you need both English and French. Yeah, but other than that, I work for provincial government and I don't speak French, but there's no problem. So you don't have to worry about too much about, oh, I have to learn both French and English. That's not the case.
I wanted to invite you to do the next episode in French, Charlie, but let's keep it to English. Well, I believe that concluded all of the inform. We shared all the important information that somebody who would be interested in our program would need to know in order to uh, give us a call or send us an email. I want to remind everyone that our website is www.wisc-go.com. So ISC from Immigrant Success Canada initials go.com. Over there, you'll find more details about our programs, our program, our 5 modules, which are self-assessment, education, work-life balance, natural environment, and a success action plan for the rest of the 20 years, or maybe 200, depends on how much you want to live. You'll find contact forms there. You can send us an email. You'll find links to our social media profiles. You can follow us there. And is there anything else you would like to add, Charlie, before we let our listeners go?
No, I think Emmanuel told all the necessary information. So please visit our website and check our program, whether it makes sense for you or not.
With that being said, thank you so much and see you in our next episode where we are going to go into details about the other module, work-life balance. Thank you so much. Au revoir.
Bye. See you later.